Watch out, buddy. Go. Watch out, pal. Good boy. All right, sorry for the technical difficulty there at the moment. Also, sorry for the hot mic if any of you were offended by me telling my dog that I love him. He's a good boy, though. You can see him laying over yonder. All right, guys, sorry I haven't made any videos in a couple of weeks. I've been super busy with life and everything like that. As you can see, the studio, for the most part, is set up. I got a couple little things to do, and I got to organize everything in that little corner there and get rid of some of it. But other than that, all that is done. My apologies for the lighting. My ring light actually died the moment that I turned it on to record this video, or to have the stream, I should say. So we'll get to some comments here before we get to the main subject matter of the video. That's why I like doing these live ones like this a little bit more than I like doing the pre-recorded ones, because it's fun to have all the extra interaction here with everything. BTS, what's up, buddy? Good to see you. Griff, good to see you too, pal. Alrighty, so we're going to see if a few more people show up here. I know that this stream was something that I didn't initially plan on doing this week, but I decided that I would go ahead and get it done. So the little presentation I have in here to talk about Slavin's contract extension, initially there was a lot more to it than that. I decided, Matthew, hey, good to see you, pal. I initially decided to, or the presentation I initially had was significantly longer, and I decided to condense it. I have 4 comparable players, whereas initially I had 7 comparable players, and I felt like that I felt like that was a few too many to make the comparison, so I trimmed some of the fat there, and I broke down some of the numbers for Jaccob Slavin in comparison to some of these other players who play comparable roles. And I'm going to go through that presentation there, and then I'm going to give my rationale as to why I think Jaccob Slavin is going to get the contract extension that I think he's going to get. Now, I would also like you guys to let me know what you like and dislike about the format of how I'm presenting this, because next I will be doing a Seth Jarvis video about his contract extension, and he's another one of those guys that I'm 99.999% sure he will get signed. It would be very detrimental to the organization not to sign him, but don't worry, Slavin will get extended, Jarvis will get extended. Gensel, I think you have a little bit to worry about there, but when it comes to those two guys, Slavin and Jarvis, pretty sure that it'll get done. So let's see what else we got here. BTS also says, sorry, I haven't been on the chat lately. I've been sleeping a lot. Dude, I don't blame you, man. I mean, in a few months from now, I'll actually be able to sleep a lot more because my nose won't be on the side of my face. My left nostril is like breathing through a coffee straw, and I'm getting a surgery done to correct that. And then I'm going to have a good night's sleep, possibly for the first time in my entire life. So I'm going to do this presentation. Like I said, guys, let me know what you think of the format of it, what you like about it, what you don't like about it. And then I'll be doing a similar video in regards to Seth Jarvis within the coming days. It won't be anytime this weekend. I'm going to be at the ballpark a lot this weekend because the Braves are in town. So let's see what we got here. So let me get this set up here. All right. So cited references here are Hockey Reference, StatMuse, and Cat Friendly. Hockey Reference, of course, for the Hockey Reference and StatMuse for the player statistics, and of course Cat Friendly for the contract info for each of the players here. So the primary subject matter of this particular presentation is Jaccob Slavin. He is just turned 30. 7 years, $5.3 million AAV on his current contract, which has 1 year remaining. He will be eligible to sign an extension on July 1st of this year, and I have zero doubt that that will get done. I imagine it will be done shortly after the regular seat, or excuse me, it will be done shortly after July 1st, if not on July 1st. So looking at some of his career numbers here, games played, he has 665 total, 49 goals, 223 assists for a total of 272 points. Now, this is something I'm going to mention over and over again here. He's only had 86 penalty minutes in his entire life, and they are all minor penalties. He's never received a major. He's never been suspended for anything. He plays a very clean, non-physical game. Most of his penalties are usually delay of game, puck over glass penalties, and he has the occasional stick infraction. That's about it. Average time on ice, 20:56, so he does pull some heavy minutes. 1,105 shot blocks, 412 hits. So again, not the most physical player, but he does use selective body contact as needed. Takeaways, 638. Corsi percentage 52.8, Finley percentage 52.7. So he's very consistent in regards of how he generates possession for the Hurricanes. Points per game 0.41, and that's actually really good productivity for a defenseman who is thought of being not just purely a shutdown guy, but his main thing is being a shutdown guy. But he still has some pretty good production. So playoffs, he maintains that same steady production, and he also maintains that same steady defense. So in 71 games played, he has 7 goals, 29 assists for a total of 36 points. A lot of his goals that come in the playoffs are incredibly clutch as well. As you may remember, the 2 that he had against the Islanders last season, the 1 that he had against the Devils, Jaccob Slavin comes up at the right times when he does score goals. They're not just meaningless goals. He comes in clutch with them. Only 10 penalty minutes in 71 games played in the playoffs. That is remarkable. Playoffs is the last time that you need to be taking penalties. Average time on ice, 24:08. Now, the reason that that's a little bit higher, obviously, is because of overtime and everything like that. 134 shot blocks, 81 hits, 82 takeaways, and holding pretty steady in the possession metrics with a Corsi of 50.3, a Fenwick of 50.2, points per game 0.51. So the productivity tends to go up a little bit in the playoffs. Other relevant splits for an on-ice save percentage, 5-on-5, it's 91.7. Shorthanded, 84.7. Both of those are remarkable numbers, especially the shorthanded one. PIM per game, like I said, doesn't take a ton of penalties, 0.13. Total career goals against 711. 192 of those have come while the Hurricanes are shorthanded. Now, here's one metric I find relatively impressive. You guys have always heard about goals saved above expected and, other metrics that are above expected. I don't like using plus minus as an absolute stat. I like using it as a reference point in comparison to other things. And this is a pretty cool one. So this is plus minus versus his expected plus minus, 151 of an actual plus minus versus an expected of 112.3. Very defensively competent player. Expected goals for versus expected goals against is 59.5. These are his career numbers. This is accounting for the couple of years he was playing for the Hurricanes before they actually started making the playoffs, when the team was still bad for the first few seasons he was here. And he took a very team-friendly deal with Ron Francis for $5.3 million. Even at the time, that was kind of the going rate for a player like him, but he's definitely exceeded those expectations, and he's due for a very, very large raise. So now I'm going to go on to the second presentation here. And these are, kind of looking at him by the numbers and everything like that, season by season. Again, this guy, he's not a heavy producer. He does have an above-average amount of production for a shutdown defenseman. Where Slavin contributes offensively more than anything is, one, he creates a lot of transition plays by playing good defense, and two, he creates what I like to call offense by proxy, because whenever he's got a high-risk, high-reward type of right defenseman, someone like Dougie Hamilton, Brent Burns, Tony DeAngelo, those guys – they know that they have Jaccob Slavin on their left. They have the best safety valve in the National Hockey League, so they can make those high-risk, high-reward plays, and they don't think twice about it. The hesitation disappears from the game of any good right defenseman who loves to play that high-risk, high-reward, quick transition game and loves to join the rush, because they know they got the guy back there who's going to break up the 2-on-1s, break up the 3-on-1s even, and play really good, solid defense. And a lot of times he stops the rush the other way before it even makes it past the red line. So that's where Jaccob Slavin contributes the most offensively, is in that intangible manner. So going on to some more important notes about him here. He's been an alternate captain since the beginning of the 2019-2020 season. He was named that after Justin Falk departed. He's the longest tenured guy wearing a full-time letter other than the captain, Jordan Staal. He signed a 7-year, $37 million contract with the Hurricanes on July the 12th, and he has received Lady Byng and Norris votes every single season he's been in the league, with the exception of his rookie season, and has won the Lady Byng twice. That's one thing I can't emphasize enough, the net positive that this guy gives you on the penalty kill in particular. Not only does he almost never take penalties, he's one of the best penalty killers in the league, and he might be the most valuable in terms of metrics. I'll get to that a little bit more in detail as soon as we're through the slides and everything like that. Now, one of the other things that I want to point out here, he's likely to have a lot of career longevity because he does not play with a ton of physicality. Jaccob Slavin is very selective when he uses body contact, and he doesn't go for the big hits. He goes enough to separate the puck from the player as opposed to the player from the puck. Now, Slavin can dish the body. We saw him hit Taylor Hall. We know what he's capable of when he has to do that, but he's not someone who plays that heavy physical game. He doesn't make a big hit to take himself out of the play. It's all about regaining possession and distributing the puck to the right place for him. That makes him incredibly valuable. So my overall contract projection for Jaccob Slavin is 8 years, $64 million for an average annual value of $8 million. Now, there is a specific reason why I think Jaccob Slavin is going to make right at about that, maybe up to 8.5. But if you get him for anything less than 8, it is an absolute steal. It would be exactly like when Aho came in under a $10 million AAV. If this guy were to hit the open market, which don't worry about that happening, that's not going to happen. If Jaccob Slavin were to hit the open market, someone would pay him 9.5 by the time that day came. But we're not going to have to worry about that. So now some comparable players here. I have 4 of them. I'm going to start with Jonas Brodin, who I think is the most comparable in terms of the play style. He's very much the same way. He doesn't lay the body a whole lot. He's all about separating the puck from the player with good gap control and a good defensive stick. So he signed a 7-year, $42 million contract with the Wild back in 2020. Now, that was when the landscape of the league was kind of weird because of all the shutdowns and everything like that. Keep that in mind. He is also 30 years of age. He has played 803 games, 54 goals, 186 for a total of 240 points, has a plus 22, 1,387 blocks, 419 hits. Again, not a very physical guy, 272 takeaways. Now, the possession metrics here are a little bit lower, but possession metrics are also very driven by the team around you. Slavin does contribute to the possession metrics of the Hurricanes greatly. Brodin does for his team as well. And this is also another guy who does not take a whole lot of penalties. So he's only had 244 in his whole career, and a lot of those are just accidental stick infractions where he accidentally gets the skates when he's going for a poke check or delay of game clearing the puck over the glass. Penalty kill, he's heavily relied on, just like Jaccob Slavin is. 187 total minutes on the penalty kill. Shorthanded on ice save percentage, 86.7. Power play goals against, 218. That's not that many when you're talking about how long this guy's been playing. Playoffs, same thing. Not a big producer, but definitely brings the same things to the table. And he's also had multiple Lady Byng votes. He hasn't won it yet, but Jonas Brodin plays a very, very similar game to Jaccob Slavin in regards of how he executes takeaways and how he doesn't go for the big hits. So now moving on to a more physical player here, Adam Pelech, one of my favorite non-Hurricanes. He signed an 8-year, $46 million contract with the New York Islanders on August 6, 2021. He's getting close to 30, but he's not quite there yet. 500 games played. 26 goals, 114 assists for a total of 140 points, plus 75. He is very good defensively. I'm not just basing that strictly on plus minus. 847 blocks, 725 hits. Adam Pelech likes to lay the body. 238 takeaways. Corsi 44.4, Fenwick 44.7, 201 penalty minutes. Pelech plays a more physical style of the game, so he's more likely to take penalties, and he gets into stuff after the whistle and all that. That's not Jaccob Slavin or Jonas Brodin's game. Playoffs, 59 games played, 3 goals, 13 assists, 16 points, plus 6, 110 blocks, 178 hits, 37 takeaways. Corsi 41.4, Fenwick 42.2. One thing to keep in mind with the Islanders, they haven't had the most playoff success in the last few seasons. They've been really bad, particularly in the last 2 seasons. I don't know why. Penalty minutes, 33 total. Penalty kill time on ice, that's supposed to say 120 minutes, so please forgive that. That was a typo on my part. And a shorthanded on ice save percentage, 81.9. And like I said, he defends more through physicality. But his average annual value, 5.75, signed a year after Jonas Brodin. And then now going on to the last 2 players here, as far as the structure of the contract goes that Slavin would get, I would say Devon Toews is the closest in terms of what Slavin's contract will look like. So he signed his contract with the Colorado Avalanche on October 13th, 2023, and he came in at 7 years, $7.25 million average annual value. Now, you were hearing me talk about offense by proxy earlier. Offense by proxy is something that Cale Makar benefits from, thanks to Devon Toews. Cale Makar does a lot of the things that he does because he knows he's got Devon Toews to save him in the event that he makes a mistake, or if he coughs up the puck, or if a transition play just goes wrong, or if there's a high shot block close to the blue line. He knows that he's got Devon Toews there to take care of him. So in 397 games played, Devon Toews has 52 goals, 182 assists for a total of 234 points. So he's a little bit more of a producer than Slavin in terms of how quickly he's on pace to produce points and everything like that. 525 blocks, 344 hits. Devon Toews is someone that I think has almost that perfect mix of using the defensive stick and the well-timed gap control and the physicality. I think he does a little bit of all of it. Corsi, 53%, Fenwick 52, penalty minutes 100. Again, a guy that does not take a ton of penalties. Penalty kill, 233 minutes time on ice save percentage of 86.7, power play goals against 104. Heavily relied on the penalty kill, just like Jaccob Slavin is. And in the playoffs, this guy has a Stanley Cup, and he was a pretty big contributor to them getting there, in my opinion. Very unsung hero type. 77 games played, 11 goals, 40 assists for a total of 51 points, plus 24, 101 blocks, 101 hits, 42 takeaways, Corsi of 53.8 and Fenwick of 53.3, and only 18 penalty minutes. So penalty kill, 71 minutes, relied on heavily there, and an on-ice save percentage of 93.3. So Devontae's, I think, is kind of in that ballpark of what Slavin will be making in terms of getting more on the $8 million side. The biggest reason I think Slavin will get closer to $8 million than Devontae's did is because of the resume. As you saw earlier, Jaccob Slavin had 600 plus games played already. So additionally to that, Jaccob Slavin also wears a letter. That's going to be a big factor in his contract as well. And lastly, one of the reasons I put this particular player on the list is I feel like he's one of the most underrated shutdown guys in the league. I don't feel like enough people talk about Esa Lindell. This guy is one of the best shutdown defensemen in the league, and he's an excellent penalty killer, but he doesn't give you a ton of production. So out of all the contracts that are comparable here, this is the one that's the furthest in the past. He signed a 6-year, $34 million deal, nearly $35 million deal on May 16th, 2019. He is also 30 years of age. In 604 games, he has 49 goals, 142 assists for a total of 191 points, plus 104, 1,100 blocks, 907 hits, 205 takeaways, a Corsi of 44.6, a Fenwick of 44.7, and penalty minutes 144. So very comparable in terms of what results you get out of Esa Lindell defensively. He just doesn't produce a whole lot, but he is heavily relied on by the Dallas Stars for their penalty kill. Penalty killing, again, time on ice, 290 minutes, shorthanded on ice save percentage of 85.8, power play goals against throughout his entire career, 231. Playoffs, same steady type of production and everything like that. He has a very, very similar play style to Jaccob Slavin, particularly in the way that they execute zone defense, being aggressive with the gap control at the right time, laying the body at the right time, taking away open ice at the right time, and making sure that they don't overcommit to the wrong guy. You saw what happened when that happened with David Pastrnak, when players overcommitted to the wrong players, and Brent Burns got stuck in no man's land, and Pastrnak took it to the net pretty much completely unopposed and scored. Something like that does not happen very often when Esa Lindell is on the ice. So very, very underappreciated player in my opinion. So that's the short version, I guess you could say, of why I think that Jaccob Slavin is going to make that $8 million ballpark, because it's not just what he does defensively. It's not just what he does in transition plays. It also has to do with what he does in the locker room, him being an alternate captain and being the longest tenured leadership on this team that will carry the torch of being the longest tenured leadership on this team once Jordan Staal retires in 3 seasons or so. I think that Jaccob Slavin is the best shutdown defenseman in the National Hockey League, and I'm working on compiling enough video evidence and presenting it in a manner in which I made my Aho video and my Nikishin video to make that case. But the more and more I look at the numbers of this guy, I legitimately believe he might be the biggest net positive on penalty killing in the league as an individual player in the post-lockout era. So now that we've got through that, I'm going to go through the comments and everything. And like I said, guys, let me know what you thought of that presentation format. Griff, if you're being reminded of the Army right now and the death by PowerPoint thing, I'm very, very sorry. Let's see. We basically have a third goalie. Yes. Now, that's one thing to keep in mind with Jaccob Slavin is he did play. So Jaccob Slavin played goalie growing up, and then he switched to playing defense. Jaccob Slavin also played baseball. So you can see a lot of what he does, or a lot of what he does as a defenseman, a lot of his shot blocking ability in particular. You can see some of that goaltending still in his elements of his game. When you look at his hand-eye coordination, a lot of that comes from him playing baseball. And another thing that I remember him saying, and I'm trying to find where I can get an actual quote of it, whether it be video or text in an article. Slavin's oldest sister, Jordan, played at, I want to say it was University of North Dakota. And Slavin said she had a lot of influence on his game, because in women's hockey, you're not allowed to check. You're allowed to have competitive contact, but you can't hit. So that's where a lot of the influences on his game came in terms of using the defensive stick and using more of a competitive contact style with body contact as opposed for going for the really big hits. So Matt says LOL. And J-Dub, what's up, buddy? Slavin and Jarvis, Canes for life, damn it. It'll get done. I'm not worried about that. Gensel, I'm a little bit worried about because I recently found out, thanks to Griff actually, that Chicago apparently is one of the landing spots that Gensel might go. I personally don't understand that. Maybe he just really wants to play with Connor Bedard, and I don't blame him because, like, if you want someone who's going to distribute the puck for you a whole bunch and let you do your job, and, you know, you could do the same thing in reverse, that would be a place for him to go. But I was hoping that the Hurricanes will keep him here. If that takes $10 million, I'm totally okay with it. Matthew also says best overall defender in the league, and I wouldn't trade him for any other defenseman. I don't think I'd trade Jaccob Slavin for anything. So I know that it's a widely debated topic where Jaccob Slavin ranks among all defensemen. And I think that in terms of a shutdown defenseman, he is in a league of his own. That's why I think he's going to make more money than all the guys I just showed you. All the players I just showed you fill the exact same role. The only difference is Esa Lindell is utilized more in the second and third pair with Dallas than he is with the top one, even though I think he's still capable of playing top pair minutes if he had to and everything like that. But all those guys are left-handed shutdown defensemen who serve as safety valves for high-risk, high-reward right-side defensemen. And Slavin just really stands apart from a lot of those guys. I'm not saying that they're not good. They're all amazing players. But Slavin, just something about, or several things about him in terms of what he brings to the table stands out. But he's old. I don't think he's gonna take up playing again. Yager, on the other hand, nah, give me Slavin. No one is better shutting down the opposition, which is what the position is all about. I agree. So the reason why I think the NHL has gone to the rise of the offensive defenseman, particularly since the end of the lockout, the full season lockout, one of the dumbest rules hockey ever had, in my opinion. And I want to make a whole video about this, but I got to figure out what I'd trim about it because I could go on for an hour about how much I hated this rule. Two-line pass was the dumbest rule hockey ever had. College hockey never had it. And prior to the NHL having the full lockout season, when I was growing up in Fayetteville watching SPHL hockey, back when it was still called the SEHL, I think it was, the Southeast Hockey League, and they removed two-line pass, and they did 3-on-3 overtime before the NHL did. So when they removed two-line pass, it increased the pace of that league significantly. It was so much better. The hockey was so much better. So the NHL took it out. I don't think the SPHL was their reason for doing it. I think that rule inevitably was going to go away. But part of the reason why all these offensively minded defensemen exist, whether you want to look at someone who's got a really good two-way game like Cale Makar, Adam Fox, Brady Shea, ones like that, or if you want to look at someone who's almost purely offense like Sean Dursey, Tyson Barrie, Tony DeAngelo, guys like that, the whole reason they exist is because with no two-line pass, it wasn't about backpedaling the puck, making a heads-up play, and executing a good pass within a very limited amount of space like it used to be. Now it's all about I can either backpedal, make a pass, or I can make a quick pass, and it doesn't matter as long as the guy's not on the other side of the opposite blue line that I'm aiming at, and as long as I don't ice the puck, none of that really matters. So that's why all these purely offensive defensemen, these fourth forward types, these power play quarterbacks, because when I was growing up, two defensemen were on the power play still and three forwards, whereas now pretty much everybody has four forwards and a fourth forward, or a guy who acts as a fourth forward 5-on-5 quarterbacking the power play, i.e. Burns, DeAngelo, guys like that. So let's see. BTS says, could you imagine prime Patrick Roy with the current Canes D? Woo. Yeah, that would be something. A prime goaltender at all. That's why it's like I'm hoping that eventually they'll go for someone like Linus Ullmark with the potential of Natchez being traded out of town. That's one that I really keep hearing a lot about. Griff says, haha, yes, death by PowerPoint. Yeah, I saw that it would upload the Google Slides thing, so I decided to do that instead of doing a preloaded video. And it actually worked out pretty well. I was actually really happy with it on my end. Like I said, you guys let me know what you think. I think 8 is a good number for Slavin. I think it comes in around 7 to 7.5. If he takes less than 8, I will be ecstatic. I will be more happy about Slavin taking less than 8 than I was about Aho taking less than 10. But then there's Orlov making 7.75, so maybe that match or exceed. You know what? That's a good point. The reason I think that, well, Orlov's contract was so heavy because the term was short, because he knew he was stopgap until Nikishin gets here, and that he probably was not going to be re-signing here, at least not for that kind of money. If Shea doesn't come back, I think you can go ahead and look at extending Orlov, but it also, there's a bunch of different factors with that. Everything between now and July 1st is going to be really, really interesting. And additionally, myself and Matthew Griffith and several other people that you have seen me collaborate with from Caniac Report and Caniac Sessions, the two Sams, Griff and AB, we're going to try and get together and do something on or around free agency as well. That may be on this channel. It may be over on the Caniac Sessions YouTube channel. And if you haven't subscribed to to Caniac Sessions yet on YouTube as well, please go do that. Help them get in the algorithm. They're live streaming their episodes now as well. Matthew says the offensive defenseman is like the old Rover position. Yes, that's a great way to compare it. The Rover basically did whatever he wanted. It was like, you know how in football, how you have the man in motion? Well, imagine the man in motion, but he has no line of scrimmage other than making sure he doesn't go offside. That's a lot of what the Rover was. And then eventually when the Rover was phased out, the center basically took over a lot of the Rover's duties. And then it evolved to where you have the pure offensive defenseman type, and you have to have those type of players. Like, imagine this, if you will, and I was arguing with some idiot on an X about this who was just randomly going off on, Tony D'Angelo without knowing what they were talking about. If you build a defense, you have six primary defensemen, right? If not, at least two of those guys, at least two of them have to be the high risk, high reward type of quick transition playmaking types, or you will not win a cup. You might win a lot of games, you'll make the playoffs, but you will not win a cup unless you have somebody who turns what is a 2-on-2 entry into a 3-on-2 odd man rush. So you have to have those types of players, and I think part of what did that was the removal of two-line pass. It was just a stupid, arbitrary rule, and I'm very glad it's gone. And I'm hoping next that the trapezoid is going to go, because I hate that rule. I hate that rule with a passion. It was made basically just to mess with Marty Brodeur. Marty Brodeur is retired, and pretty much all the goalies are good at playing the puck. I'm not saying every goalie is Mike Smith, but you don't see goalies that outright don't play the puck anymore. So, feedback on the slide, great info and easy to read. Good to go with for the future. Thank you, Griff. Absolutely, I'll be doing that then. BTS says, agreed. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. So, but that was my big thing. I put a lot of thought into about where Slavin would land at. If he comes in under 8, I'm going to be really happy. So one of the things that I've said before, and this is a good discussion to have, people have always talked about, or I won't say people, it was something I said. I think Jaccob Slavin is the most important player that this team has ever drafted. Yes, that also includes Aho is a very, very, very close second. The reason I say Jaccob Slavin is the most important player that this team ever drafted, Sebastian Aho is definitely one of the best two-way centers in the league. I think he's very underrated, and I think that he should habitually be in the conversation of the top 10 centers in the league, and for stretches of time, the top 5. However, he is not the best at what he does. He's never going to supersede McDavid, Matthews, McKinnon, guys like that for long stretches of time. Jaccob Slavin, for his role and what he does, he is the best that there is. So he laid the framework, I think, not single-handedly, of course. Pesci was involved and other guys like that. He laid the framework to pull this team out of the dark ages on the ice. I really think that he was one of the biggest contributors to that. And then once Aho came over from Karpat and all that type of stuff, and then it goes from there. Matthew says, slide presentation was very informative. Thank you. And thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for showing up. Griff says, could you see a scenario where Slavin gets to see over Aho after Stahl leaves? No. Personally, the reason I don't see that is because I think that Slavin has solidified himself into wearing that letter and being the second in command, if you will. And they're just going to put Aho into the captaincy spot from there. Biggest reason being is Aho will be one of those guys that will go in the locker room when things aren't going well, and he'll raise his voice a little bit, drop some explicatives, and maybe try and, kick the guys into high gear and, all that type of stuff. Whereas with Slavin is more of that steady presence, that calm guy that doesn't have to yell. The good cop, bad cop thing, I think that'll be a good dynamic between the two of them. And then as far as the other letter goes, once depending on what happens with Martinook and Nason, I don't know if they'll still be playing by the time Jordo retires or if they'll still be with the Canes. But as far as another A, I think you got to maybe start thinking way down the road, obviously. Maybe Jarvis would be a good candidate for that because he leads by example through the manner in which he plays. So I don't see any way that it's not Aho going to be the captain. Dundon basically said at the end of last season that it's pretty much Aho's team now. And I think that Aho is kind of the de facto captain, but Jordo is still running things. But Aho is shadowing him to the greatest degree possible until it's time for him to take the reins. That's just my personal belief of it. It gave me a look at players that are like Slavin. I like it. Yes, there are several defensemen like Slavin. So a term that used to be really commonly used that I personally think is a little outdated. The reason I say shutdown defenseman, there's two different reasons. One, I think the prototypical stay-at-home defenseman is long gone. I think about the closest thing you have to that now is someone like Joel Edmondson, someone who just never pinches, always, stays at the point, never lets anybody get behind him, and is almost 110% focused on the defensive side of the game. I think that player is pretty much extinct. That has to do with a lot of the reasons I was aforementioning, with the game being more skill first, speed first, transition based, as opposed to how it used to be before two-line pass was removed and before the average talent of the players shot way up in the last 10, 15 years, in my opinion. And I would say that when it comes to I'm watching my dog back there being crazy. So when it comes to something like that, I would say that the term shutdown defenseman is what I prefer because that's their primary role. For example, if someone's a shutdown center like Jordan Stahl is, he still chips in some offense, but he's not purely a defensive center. It's the same thing with someone like Sebastian Aho, who I describe as a very pure 200-foot center and has relatively equal value in all three zones. The other term that I hate to describe someone like Jaccob Slavin, even though it's never going to go away, is defensive defenseman. I feel like that's kind of a redundant term. I think that that's why I prefer the term shutdown defenseman. That's the way that I prefer to go about it. But that's just me. Griff says, love Jarvis getting an A in the future. I definitely think that's going to happen. One of the reasons why I think Jarvis will be the other guy with the A is because, like I was saying, one, he leads by example on the ice. He plays really, really hard every single shift. He leaves it all out there. We know the injuries that he played through and everything like that. And to add to the dynamic of Aho, someone who's kind of got that 50-50 demeanor of he'll yell, he'll raise his voice, he'll, try and get the boys back into it, whereas Slavin is more of the calm, steady presence. Jarvis is just the unregulated little ball of energy that brings a lot of life to that locker room. And when things are really bad, he can probably make everyone laugh and loosen them up when they need to. I can see that being the leadership group for the Hurricanes in a few seasons if they don't continue to alternate an A at home and an A on the road. I could definitely see Seth Jarvis being that third alternate captain. If they had to alternate, or if they did one alternate on the road and one at home, I don't know who else long-term, who that would be like at this particular moment. Jarvis is the only other guy that I see getting a letter long-term right now. Svechnikov takes too many penalties. If he ever cleans that up, then maybe he could do it. But I believe Aho is our best forward defenseman, but that's just me. He is much better defensively than people give him credit for. He finished 11th in Selke voting. Jordan Stahl, as you know, of course, was a finalist. And Seth Jarvis was 8th, I want to say. Aho's defensive game was tailor-made by Brendan Moore. That's why I made the video I made about him. And I've got more stuff on Aho in the works to talk about how complete his game really is. But when you look at all these star players in the league, I don't think many of them can say they have as well-rounded, as complete, as well-refined of a game at both ends of the ice as Aho does. And a lot of the people who say so-and-so is better than Aho, they just look at how many points that they put up and they try to leave it at that. Whereas Aho is a steady producer. He's point per game pretty much his entire career. He's well on his way to having 11, maybe 1,200 points, because after this extension is over, his 8 years that is starting next season. I don't think he's going to be done playing. I could see him, doing what Jordan Stahl did and signing a 4-year contract when he's 32, 34 years old, however old he'd be when that one's over. Let's see. Yeah, he'll be 34 when his current contract's over. I could see him potentially doing that again. I think Aho's another guy that's going to have a lot of career longevity. So that's pretty much all I got for this. So the next player I'll be doing with this, I'm going to shoot for, let's see, I'll try for Monday or Tuesday, and I will do one on Seth Jarvis. Now, in the event that there's any news, such as any signings, trades, everything like that, depending on what time of day it happens and whatever my life circumstances are, I'll try and hop on that night and do them. And, of course, I'll invite, the guys from Caniac Sessions and Caniac Report, and we'll do like an instant analysis type of thing of any sorts of trades, signings, everything like that. And it'll be, I like these informal, Griff says, good stuff, but enjoyed it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Again, please, if you haven't yet, subscribe to their channel as well over at Caniac Sessions. I really, really enjoy doing these live streams and being a little bit more informal about it at times. It's cool to make pre-recorded videos, but I also like sit there and meticulously clip out every little thing and re-record a bunch of stuff. Whereas here, I just kind of turn my brain off and set stuff up and go. So I'm glad that you guys enjoyed this format and everything. The actual part where I talk about Jaccob Slavin's Jaccob Slavin's contract, I will probably clip that individually as a segment and post it separately. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. I had a lot of fun tonight. I will hopefully see you on Monday with a similar video in regards to Seth Jarvis. Let me know if you want anything else in that video that you think would be interesting to talk about, what his contract's going to be like. Sneak preview, I think Jarvis is also going to get around 8.5 by 8 as well. I think he'll make a little bit more than Slavin, but he fills a different role. So thank you guys very much. If you want to donate, the link to my Buy Me a Coffee is in the description, and I put all that money right back into the channel and everything like that. BTS says, I had fun. See you Monday, Tuesday. Absolutely, I had fun. Thank you for joining me. And Matt says, thanks for the show. Take care. Matthew, thank you. I appreciate it very much. All right, y'all take care. I'll see you next time.